Everybody has their favorite part of the process. Trimming is mine. Let me show you how. So when I'm trimming, I'm typically trimming directly on the wheel head, and that's for a couple of reasons. One, the wheel head is completely flat, and two, it gives me these centric rings that allow me to more easily center my pot. I'm going to intentionally put my pot off center so that I can illustrate a little bit of how I center on the wheel. So I leave my finger in a fixed position, letting the pot roll around. And I have two options. I can either stop it and move away from my finger, or when the pot is far away from my finger, I could move it back toward me. So I'm going to now take a little bit of time and just place it in what I perceive is the center based on the centric rings. And I'm always checking for center at the halfway point of my pot, or the part that is most centered. And the reason for that is we want to trim the foot to match the pot, not the pot to match the foot. So I'm now resting my finger here, looking for subtle movement of my pot. All right, now that my pot is on center, I want to use 3 lugs to hold my pot down. I'm going to apply some pressure to the foot of my pot, applying a downward force to my lug so that it holds my pot in place. I want to try to place these equidistant around my pot because if they're not, then it's likely the pot could pop out from the larger gap. All right, so the tool that I use is a Kemper tool or Dolan, but it's sort of a crescent-shaped tool. And I use this because I like that there are corners and then there's a long edge. And so you can use a bunch of different things, but this is my favorite. So I'm always anchoring my left hand on the pot. This gives me stability to come in with my pointer finger and thumb and come in contact with my trimming tool. I will oftentimes keep my arms in incredibly close to my body, and I'm using the corner of the tool to define my foot ring. I'm giving myself a little bit of a margin of error here so that I can come in a little bit more from the outside or come out a little bit more from the inside. And now I'm starting by removing the exterior material. And that's because the left finger is in the center, and this is sort of my area for support. So I want to leave it until the very end. I'm using the round part of my tool to remove large amounts of material. I'm resting it carefully on the side of the pot, but if you'll notice, I'm holding my tool stable. Because if I put both my hands on my tool and I rest it on the pot, I will remove an even amount of material all the way around. My pot foot will get smaller and smaller, but stay uneven. If I'm able to hold my tool in a fixed place, I'm going to remove more from the side that has more and less from the side that has less. This line, by default, is a circle because it's made from a fixed point as my pot moves in a circle. So I really use that as a guide. If I get into that guide on one side but not the other, I know I haven't done a very good job of holding my tool stable. Trimming into that line, holding my tool as stable as possible. All right, so now I've gotten into that line all the way around, and generally you will have a little bit more material in the bottom of your pot. So I'm going to start down here near the third of the way down the pot, and I'm trimming toward my foot. I'm trimming what I've sort of dubbed the continuous curved foot right now, so there's no hard transition in between the foot and the pot. This is my favorite part of the process. I feel like I'm revealing what was there the whole time. That's sort of what my vision of the pot is going to be. I really love that. I love the ribbons coming off of the clay and the sounds that it makes as I'm sort of trimming this material away. Correct. So I have the exterior where I want it. I do want to trim off this corner. Corners are likely to chip, so I'm going to take that and I'm going to compress it. I'm also going to use this red rubber rib to compress away the visual information that has come from the trimming tool, from a little bit of grog that's in my clay body. Just sort of remove that and compress it. Now, I talked about that margin of error earlier, so I'm going to end up bringing my line out a little bit. I want my foot ring to be slightly thicker than wall's thickness, so if I had left my line where it was before, it would have been a little bit too thick. I'm now trimming down to the depth that I want my foot to be. Now that's based on how much material you leave in the bottom of your pot. I would encourage beginners to leave more rather than less. It will give you a little bit more of a margin of error while you're trimming. I like personally for me to have enough depth here that I can get about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch down, and so I can nest some glaze inside of my foot. I'm just going to go ahead and trim down to the depth that I want this to be. Once I've reached the depth that I want, I'm going to start to remove this material in the center. To do that, I'm always working from the inside out. It keeps the pressure on the rim of the pot. And that's what I want. I don't want my pot to pop off of the wheel. I'm just slowly working from the center out. The interior of my pot is concave, so I want the exterior of my foot to be convex. One of the reasons that we trim is equal wall thickness, so I'm trying to sort of use the X-ray vision that I don't have to be able to predict the wall thickness so that I get uniform wall thickness all the way through. Right. So I'm happy with the interior profile. Just have a little bit of cleanup to do. I'm going to sort of clean up this inner edge, get all of these little bits out of here. And then I'm going to come in. I want to take off this inner corner just like I did with the outer one. Sort of soften it with my fingers. And then I'm going to bring my red rubber rib in here. Now I like to sort of go down and pull back against the spin, compressing the clay really nice and strong. Kind of bring that up on top while I rest my fingers on either side so that I don't get a new corner. Compress that pot. Then I can take these lugs off and I can sort of evaluate how I've done. If you notice, I have no change in direction on the inside. The only line I have is that indentation, which I made to sort of frame out whatever I choose to put inside of my bowl. Trimming is my favorite part of the process. We get to reveal the form of the pot that we've thrown on the wheel.